I came home after 14 brutal hours with grease in my fingerprints, sawdust in my hair, and the kind of back pain that makes your truck seat feel like a church pew, and found my front yard looking like a crime scene. Fresh-cut oak limbs were scattered all over the grass. The big red oak my granddad planted when I was born had a raw wound carved into it, and tucked under my windshield wiper was a citation from the HOA, like they were doing me the courtesy of a parking ticket after the robbery. Then Beverly Mitch opened her front door 3 houses down, smiled like she'd just dropped off a pie, and said, "I did you a favor, Mr. Calloway. You're welcome." That was the moment I stopped seeing Beverly as an annoying neighbor with too much free time, and started seeing her for what she really was: a small-time tyrant in a pressed blouse, hiding behind HOA letterhead and acting like my property was hers to manage. My name's Garrett Calloway. I'm a carpenter outside Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm not the kind of man who explodes fast. I measure twice, cut once, and if something's crooked, I'd rather fix it right than make a scene. My wife Darlene says patience is the one thing I've got more of than clamps. Usually she's right, but patience and surrender are not the same thing. And Beverly was about to learn that the hard way. Darlene and I bought our place in Clover Ridge Estates back in the fall of 2019. It wasn't some fancy country club neighborhood with stone gates and a fountain nobody asked for. It was simple, steady, lived-in quarter-acre lots, porches with flags, casseroles, when somebody got sick trees older than half the people paying mortgages there. That's what sold us. Not the square footage, not the kitchen counters, the trees, especially that red oak in my front yard, 70 feet of shade and history solid as a courthouse pillar, healthy as could be. I'm a carpenter, I know wood, and I know when something's sound. For years, the HOA was basically background noise, $90 a month, some common area mowing, the occasional newsletter reminding people not to park a boat in the driveway and call it decor. Then Beverly got elected president in early 2021 because nobody else wanted the job, which, if we're being honest, is how half of America's dumbest little dictators get started. First came the handbook, 12 pages of updated standards for a neighborhood with 43 homes. There were rules about mailbox colors, rules about holiday displays, rules about wind chimes. For the love of God, I should have known then. Any grown adult who writes a paragraph about wind chime harmony is not planning to govern, they're planning to reign. The first time she touched my property, I was standing on my porch in socks on a cold March morning, listening to a gas-powered pole saw tear through live wood. If you've never heard that sound, it's hard to explain, not the dry crack of dead limbs, but this wet, low, ugly grind that hits you in the teeth. I walked outside and saw 2 men from a landscaping crew taking big limbs off my oak branches, hanging over the sidewalk, leaves and twigs, raining down into my yard like confetti at a funeral. I asked what the hell they were doing. One of them just shrugged and handed me a citation. That was Beverly's style, not a conversation, not a warning, not even the decency to knock. Just action, first paperwork, second smile, third. So I did the reasonable thing. I walked over to her beige colonial with those fake shutters that don't close. That detail annoyed me more than it should have, but I'm a carpenter. Fake shutters feel personal, and asked that she notify me before anybody ever set foot on my property again. She stood there in a pressed blouse at 9 in the morning, glasses on her forehead, smiling that polished, bureaucratic smile, and told me the HOA had authority under the covenants to address nuisance conditions. She said the limbs were a liability, said she'd done me a favor. That phrase stayed with me. A favor, like carving up a healthy tree without permission, was some kind of gift basket. I went home, poured another coffee, and read the HOA documents myself, all 47 pages of them. Old scans with that stale paper smell rising off my laptop like a dusty law office. I took notes on a legal pad while Darlene watched a cooking show across from me, garlic and butter floating off the TV, while I highlighted language Beverly had conveniently not mentioned. Then summer came and Beverly got bolder. A popped fence board after a rainstorm turned into a formal violation notice with letterhead and a threatened $75 a day fine before I'd even had time to grab my drill. Dale Prescott got cited for a basketball hoop his grandkids used on weekends. Wanda Forsythe got cited for raised garden beds that were apparently too visible, too productive, too... What tomato forward for Beverly's taste? Bart Schilling got told his work truck was hurting curb appeal. Mailboxes became little confession booths. Folks would stand there in the evening heat smelling cut grass and charcoal, talking low like they were embarrassed by what was happening in their own neighborhood. Everybody had a story. Everybody thought maybe they were the only one being singled out. Then in September, Beverly crossed the line from irritating to expensive. I came home and found Boyd and Sons, same crew as before, had been back on my property while I was gone. This time they'd removed an entire lower canopy branch from the red oak, a major structural limb cut wrong, too close to the collar, the kind of cut that invites disease into a tree, like leaving a window open in a storm. I remember standing there on the porch staring at that fresh wound in the bark and feeling this strange cold settle into me. Not rage exactly. Rage burns hot. This was colder than that. Cleaner. This was the moment my brain stopped asking whether Beverly was overstepping and started asking how hard the law could hit her when I proved it. I called a certified arborist the next morning. Philip Draper came out circled. The tree ran his hands over the cut and wrote me a report that said exactly what I needed it to say. The branch removal damaged the tree's structural integrity, created a significant risk of fungal intrusion, and reduced its appraised landscape value by $2,800. Best $350 I ever spent. That report went into a folder on my kitchen table labeled Exhibit B, Beverly's one signature authorization memo. No full board vote, no homeowner consent was already in there as Exhibit A. And while Beverly was handing out citations like Halloween candy, I was doing something she never saw coming. I was listening, not ranting, not rallying, just listening, collecting copies of notices, tracking dates, asking neighbors what they'd been fined, when, by whom, and whether the full board had ever actually approved any of it. That's when the first twist hit. Corbin, the younger board member Beverly liked to pretend backed her on everything, had no clue what she'd been doing. The man had been traveling for work, missed meetings, hadn't approved the fines, hadn't approved the landscaping contract, hadn't even seen the latest community standards handbook until I emailed it to him myself. He was furious. Suddenly Beverly wasn't running a board, she was freelancing with a rubber stamp and a title. Then came Wanda's twist, and that one changed the whole game. Quiet Wanda with the raised beds and the tomatoes, turns out she had a law degree. Hadn't practiced HOA law, sure, but she knew how to read a statute and spot when somebody was tap dancing outside their authority. One Saturday morning, 11 of us crammed into my living room with coffee and donuts from Kroger, and Wanda sat there with Tennessee, Coda yellow highlighter, and the calm voice of somebody about to dismantle a bad argument brick by brick. That room changed everything. Because once people saw the paperwork all laid out together, the unauthorized fines, the shaky memo, the arborist report, the missing approvals, the new fee schedule Beverly had basically invented out of thin air, you could feel the whole neighborhood's mood shift. It was like watching strangers realize they'd all been pickpocketed by the same magician. Then Corbin dug up the real bomb. In the original founding covenants from 1991, buried deep in the kind of dense legal language most people never read unless they're trapped in an airport, was Section 11.4. A clause Beverly had never quoted because it wrecked her entire little empire. Any board action affecting landscaping on a private lot required two things. Not one written consent from the homeowner and approval by 2/3 of the full board. Not maybe, not usually, not if convenient. Required. That meant every trim, every cut, every contractor visit to my property had been flat out unauthorized under the HOA's own rules. Not a gray area, not a misunderstanding, a violation. And then came the nastiest twist of all. Boyd and Sons, the landscaping company Beverly kept hiring with HOA, money belonged to Stuart Boyd, her brother-in-law. That was the moment the whole story stopped being about petty control and started smelling like self-dealing. We got an attorney involved, Patricia, the kind of woman who doesn't waste syllables or billable minutes. She reviewed the documents and said the words Beverly should have been afraid of from the start: breach of fiduciary duty, unauthorized fees, conflict of interest, recovery. Patricia told us not to tip our hand. Build the record. Force a special membership meeting. Put it all in a room where Beverly couldn't spin, interrupt, or hide behind email blasts and Facebook whispers. So that's what we did. December and January were quiet on the surface. Beverly sent dramatic neighborhood emails calling us harassers. She tried retroactively approving her own actions in an emergency board meeting with Phyllis, the older board member who had been signing whatever Beverly slid in front of her. She even showed up at Dale's door suggesting his fence issue might go away if he withdrew from the records request. But pressure does funny things to people. Phyllis started to crack. Right before Christmas, she admitted she hadn't known the whole story, hadn't known about the family contractor connection, hadn't understood Section 11.4, had just trusted Beverly to know what she was doing. That was Beverly's last real ally gone. By the time the special meeting rolled around in January, our living room looked less like a house and more like a hearing room, somebody built out of folding chairs, coffee cups, and righteous patience. 31 homeowners showed up out of 43, plus a reporter from the Knoxville Sentinel, plus Patricia on video call from my laptop, plus Beverly in a blazer she probably thought still meant authority. I'd left the front door open on purpose. She walked in, saw the room, saw the packets laid out on every seat, saw Corbin, saw Phyllis, saw the reporter with his notebook open, and she froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. That exact second, a person realizes the story they've been telling themselves is dead. Corbin opened the meeting. I walked through the evidence page by page, no yelling, no theatrics, just facts. Section 11.4, the memo. The arborist report the payments to Boyd and Sons, the business registration tying Stuart Boyd to Beverly's family. Wanda explained the legal side so calmly it made Beverly sound even worse. Then the reporter asked the question that really put the nail in it. Why were HOA funds marked for common area vegetation management being used on private lot addresses? And how exactly was that not a problem when the contractor was her own relative? That room went so quiet you could hear somebody shift a coffee cup in the back. Beverly tried to answer, stumbled, tried again, and there it was. No magic, no command, no polished smile left to hide behind. Just a woman who had mistaken silence for weakness and paperwork for power. The vote took 11 minutes, 30-1. Immediate suspension of the board's authority, reversal of the unauthorized fines, forensic audit, new election within 60 days. Beverly was the one vote against. 4 days later, the Sentinel ran the story. By spring, Beverly resigned. Boyd and Sons lost the HOA contract and 2 more in the county after the article got around. The audit found over $3,000 in improperly collected fines, and checks went back out to homeowners. I filed a small claims action over the tree damage myself, filing fee $87, and recovered the full $2,800 from the HOA. That part still makes me smile, because here's the bitter little life lesson buried under all this. People like Beverly count on you being tired. Tired from work, tired from family, tired from life, too tired to read page 30 of a covenant, too tired to keep notes, too tired to organize. Petty power survives on isolation. It survives when decent people keep their heads down and tell themselves it's not worth the trouble. But sometimes the whole moral of the story is this: the quiet person with a folder and a filing fee is a lot more dangerous than the loud person with a title. These days, Clover Ridge is peaceful again. Corbin runs the HOA straight. Phyllis turned out to be surprisingly great at it. Dale still has his basketball hoop. Wanda still grows tomatoes. Bart still parks his truck. And my red oak, the tree Beverly decided was hers to manage, healed over, leafed out stronger, and throws a beautiful spread of shade across the yard every summer. Funny thing, too, some of the recovered funds ended up helping start a neighborhood canopy fund planting new native trees around Clover Ridge. We put a young white oak near the entrance last fall. Took about 40 minutes, 2 shovels, 1 rented auger, a bag of mulch. In 30 years, it'll be the kind of tree somebody buys a house for. That feels right to me. Beverly wanted control. What she left behind instead was roots. So now I want to ask you something. When somebody abuses a little bit of power, what's the right response? Grace, resistance, or full-on legal humiliation? And where do you think the line is between justice and revenge when the person across from you has been hiding behind rules the whole time?